Welcome to Heal Yet Podcast, where we normalize the lifelong journey of healing. In this season, we cover topics on heartbreak and healing, and giving different testimonies so you can find your best self again. I hope that you enjoy your time here, and that you are able to find some things to introduce to your healing journey. Thank you so much for being here and listening. All right, welcome back to the Heal Yet Podcast. I thank y'all so much for returning for yet another episode. Today I have with me Miss Pamela White. I thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come on to my show. This is somebody that I thought of immediately when I started planning this episode, simply because she was a part of my platform, the panel that I had at a conference earlier this year, and she talked about grief just effortlessly. And just to see someone that's able to go through such a thing and to stand in front of a lot of people and constantly talk about this and motivate other people takes a lot of work. So this podcast is all about healing, and I can honestly say that I see you have done a lot of work to be able to help other people heal. That takes a lot. So, again, I want to introduce Miss Pamela, and I do want you to go ahead and let us know more about yourself, what it is you do, and how did you get here today.
Yes. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your podcast and your platform to be able to share my story.
Yes.
As you mentioned, my name is Pamela White, and I've been married in just a few weeks. Actually, next Saturday will be 28 years. With We have
Wow.
two children together. And I've worked in healthcare for about 20 plus years. And I received my undergraduate degree from Southeastern Louisiana, and then went
What?
on to Southern University to obtain my master's in business administration. And in 2020, I received a master's from Tulane University in professional studies with a minor in health and wellness. And so I am very active in my community, in my church, and just any opportunity to be able to impact, to empower, or to encourage those that need it during whatever moment that may look like.
That's great. That's great. I didn't know you had so many degrees. Like that's amazing. So I'm still learning about you. I did a little research, but this is more than I know. So again, thank you. And the reason why I did ask you to come onto my show is simply because in my last season, I got a lot of requests about grief. And I truly believe God put you in my path because you yet you went through it, but you also can help people get through it as well. And nothing is better than having someone help you that has their own testimony with
Yes.
something that they are currently going through it and then finding hard to navigate. So, my first question for you today would be to give my audience a little bit more about your experience with grief and your journey with this far.
Yes, absolutely. So, grief for me started at a very young age. I was 8 years old and my dad passed away. And then 8 years later, I was 16, my mom passed away. So here I am, a teenager that's trying to navigate through life with other family issues. I had 2 more years left of school, of high school, before I graduated. So that was a lot for a teenager to try to navigate
Yeah.
through life. And just being uncertain, unsure of how things are going to go. Am I going to finish high school? Like, what is it going to look like? Where will I live? Where will resources come from for me? And I thought it was very hard for me when my mom passed away because we were very attached. And of course, I was the youngest of all of my siblings. And so not having my mom around for me was very difficult. It was hard. And so I thought that was challenging. And it was not until trying to navigate or accept the loss of my only son. And not that he was sick and passed away. It was a very tragic incident. He was murdered. And so for me, that was the most trying time for me. That's when I was introduced to things like depression that I didn't believe in, things like anxiety that I didn't believe in. And oftentimes we don't experience or we don't believe that things are real until we have to endure them. And so
Mm.
that was a big eye opener for me of what it was like to try to navigate through life. For a very very difficult time, my only son. So that was when I was introduced to grief in a very horrific and tragic way.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry. I just don't think that anyone, losing a parent is, to me, completely different from being a parent losing your
Right.
child. In the world today, I'm seeing so many parents burying their
Mm-hmm.
kids. And it's almost like it's the norm now. And back then it was me burying, you burying your
Mm-hmm.
parents. And it's so scary because so many people close to me, to this day, I am seeing them bury their
Yeah.
children from, like you said, tragic, sudden deaths. Even if it's medical related, it's still
Yeah.
hard. But when you wake up one day and your person that you see every day getting dressed, you get a call from, and you get to
Mm-hmm.
experience every day of your life is taken away from you. That's a pain that I couldn't even imagine
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yes. Yes.
So my next question is, you'd mentioned depression, anxiety. What are some other symptoms physically and mentally that you would say that you experienced in that time?
So definitely the depression. There was the moments of that, and that sometimes looks different for different people. For me, I'm a very social person. Like I didn't really want to be around anyone. Didn't want to go any place. But the anxiety was probably more real. It was more heightened than what I believe the depression was, because there were
Yeah.
moments that I felt like my heart was going to just out of my
Mm.
chest. And there were moments to where I could feel the rapidness of my heartbeat increasing just at a split moment. I could be doing good and I could feel this panic coming on, like, what is happening to me now. So those are some of the things that I experienced, probably more than anything else, is those things. I believe I physically, my blood pressure, I had issues with high blood pressure before. Definitely there were some things that had to be tweaked and changed there, of
Yeah.
habit, because of what I was experiencing, not being able to sleep at night, taking multiple types of medication, and nothing worked. Nothing would help me get more than an hour and a half or 2 hours of sleep. And, it was in that moment that I realized, okay, I'm taking this medicine that normally would knock someone out. I'm taking this for sleeping. I'm taking, this for anxiety. And on top of this, I'm taking melatonin, and I'm still not sleeping. And it was this moment to where I was like, this is not right. And
Mm.
I had to
No.
pray for myself and lay hands on my own self and say, you know what, God, before this happened, I was sleeping. So this is where I need to get myself back to.
Yeah. Yes. And I can see that that's probably what that realization is, what you got you back on
Hmm.
track. So this is such a touchy topic, and I know for people who are experiencing grief and listening to this, that this may bring up some feelings for them as well. So I do want you all to, you know, just take your time, pause the episode if you need to, and really come back when you're able to take it. And I do want to stop and thank you, because I know that reliving this and bringing this up can maybe be difficult for you. So I thank you for
Hmm.
even speaking about this. Okay, so to get back to the episode, what so in the stages of grief, which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, according to
Hmm.
Kubler-Ross. And what stage of grief would you say that you spent the most time in, that you struggled to get out of the most?
Um, I'm gonna say a little, probably. De- my situation is probably most different from many people that have grieved. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if I had to, in answering your question, I'm gonna say probably depression and a little bit of just denial. Um, but again, I will say that my case is probably a little different than most people who are grieving and
Mm-hmm.
had to go through the process of grief. And the reason I say that is so I'm a very faith, spiritual, my faith is in Christ, and it's very strong and rooted in Him. And I preference that to say this next thing is the morning that we were preparing to bury my son. At about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was awakened by God, the Holy Spirit, and said, "You're going to help other people grieve." I didn't accept it
Mm-hmm.
then. I felt very disrespected by God. And this is the way that God and I communicate. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do this. While I'm doing this, then who's going to help me? And that was January of
Mm-hmm.
2020. In March of 2020, merely 2 months later, I had 8 mothers in my living room talking about what does it look like to grieve? What are their feelings? Let's try to navigate this thing together. So I had literally 2 months of giving God my yes, inviting them to my home, them accepting it, but yet I was still walking out the journey of grief.
See how God uses us, and He's like, not on your
Yeah.
time. You're going to do this.
Hmm.
Even when you're not intentionally wanting to
Hmm.
do it, He has His way of saying, you
Yeah.
are. This is what you are built for
Right.
this. And that's why I gave you
Right.
this. So, and I have a strong faith in, for someone who has faith, but experience this amount of
Hmm.
grief, what how would you say your spirituality was tested? I know you said at the point where you kind of told him no. Did you ever once question God? Like, why me? Why would you do this to me? I've done everything. I've been here with you. Why would you allow me to experience this?
So what I will say is I never became angry at God.
Mm-hmm.
I did question him to the point to say, okay, I know my son he was not perfect, but I can go and point out to you other people that were a lot
Yeah.
worse than him. And so, I never, my son passed away. We got the call. So we knew when we left the hospital that more than likely I knew that I knew his situation. And so we went home and we got the confirming call that yes, he is brain dead. There is no brain activity, and we're going to pronounce him deceased at this moment. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a very heartbreaking moment, even though I knew it. And that was Saturday, but Sunday I was at church. Um, Wednesday I was at Bible study. For me, I felt like taking a break would allow space for me to sit in
Mm-hmm.
this longer than what I want it to be. And like, I didn't want to give an excuse to why I'm not going to church because my son passed away. And I know that is the normal thing that happens is that people, they step away from church, they take a moment. For
Yep.
me, I felt like it was most necessary to keep going. Okay, so my son is not here. Yes, that's true. I am grieving, but the place that I need to be is in a place to where I could my normal place. And so that was for me. It was important for me to continue my relationship with God, and that included going to church. Now, if I skipped, I was still accountable to my pastor because I was in leadership. And I would say, you know what, today has been a really rough day, but I
Yeah.
continued.
Yeah. That takes a lot because, like I say, at that point when this happens, people make a choice to stray away because
Hmm.
they feel betrayed. They feel like they were hurt
Hmm.
by God. Like
Hmm.
God did this to them
Hmm.
individually. And since we're on this topic and you do have such a strong faith, what advice could you give to someone who is struggling with their faith in God after losing an important person in their lives, especially a child?
Yeah, so I think it's important to be real with yourself. I think sometimes as believers, we cover things up with the scripture so much to where when it really like is it because we're Christians, we're not exempt from things happening. And so we often try to find scripture to mask what we're really feeling as a human
Mhm.
being. So I say, first and foremost, is to be real with what you're experiencing. And that's what's going to help you in your Christian walk. By fabricating things with the scripture and not accepting what is real, then you have these two things that are warring to be what they really are. And so I think being human and saying, you know what, I've had a hard day. Because often when people say, hey, how you doing? Our first response is, oh, I'm okay, I'm good. Rather than being
Mhm.
honest, if you are good, then cool. But if you're not, then let's be truthful about it. Because for me, hearing the word Romans 8 and 28, for I know all things work together for the good of them who love God and who's been called according to his purpose, that didn't jive with me initially. I didn't see how
Yeah.
none of that was going to work together. So don't come telling me about the scripture. Like right now, as a mother, I'm hurting and my heart hurts. It feels like my heart has been ripped out of my chest. But then I had to rely on other people who were strong in their faith to cover me, to pray for me in those moments because I had no words to pray. As strong as I was in my faith, I had to rely
Mhm.
on the community of people that I was connected to pray for me because I had no words. I had no words to pray. And so I think that's what happens is when people do sometimes struggle is that they don't allow themselves to be human. They don't allow people to
Yeah.
help them, and they
Mhm.
want the word of God to just simply do everything, and which it can. Don't get me wrong, but there are also, I believe, God put people in our path to help us.
People. There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's how they don't understand that, like you said, God sends us
Hmm.
people, things, jobs, churches, ministries,
Hmm.
groups. He sends these things as the help. But we have to be open to and have discernment to understand what it is that God has given us and what's not of
Right.
God. So I I I completely agree with that. And I liked how you talked about you had to use the support of others. What support did you have? I know you had your faith, you had your church. What did your support look like outside of that?
So, my daughter was very instrumental. She was, young adult. I had friends that were, I was very connected to, and there were things that I didn't even have to do. They did it for me. And because of the relationship prior to this, I trusted them. Like I trusted them to make decisions for me. I trusted them to do
Yeah.
things for me because we had a relationship prior to this. Now, granted, there were people who tried to come in that our relationship was rocky, and it was like, no, this is not the time. Like, and I even, the friends, sometimes I didn't even have to say no. My friends and my daughter said no because you were not there prior, then this is not the time because she's
Uh-huh.
vulnerable, she's weak, she's hurt, she's grieving. So no, we're not allowing you to come in. We're going to say no for her. And so that was so vital for me is that these people, my sorority that I was a part of, just different things where I've
Mm.
given people that I had served and done things for so many years. And I could remember asking God, why are these people so nice? Like I can't believe all of these people are doing things. And I was reminded by a friend Have you forgotten all the things that you've done for so many people? This is the time that you're getting it back.
Yeah. And that's the amazing thing about doing God's work, being a great person and just being you, because it definitely comes back in a time that you're needed, especially when you're just doing it from the kindness of your heart.
Mhm.
And people know that they don't expect that you don't expect, I'm sorry, anything from them
Right.
in return. That's the relationships you keep. That's the people who show up for you. And
Mhm.
like you said, in that time of grief, of being there for my family members who lost kids or parents or whatever, I did notice that a lot of people do come in that haven't been around, and they kind of make it about them,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
unknowingly. They make it about, oh no, I haven't been there for you, but I know our relationship. That's like you said, it's just not the
Yeah.
time to talk about that. My next question would be, since we on the part of allowing people to help, I've noticed that people don't know how to even be there for someone who's grieving. They think they're doing too
Mhm.
little or maybe too
Mhm.
much. And my question would be, what advice could you give to someone, or how can someone who is trying to be there for someone in their time of grief, what is it exactly that they can do, or how can they show up for that person in that time?
Yes, so thank you for asking that question because I know that there are times it could be a little sketchy, tricky, uncertain with people on
Mm-hmm.
both sides. And so I say, based on the relationship that you had with the person prior to the death or the grief, based on that
Yeah.
relationship, you keep that same relationship, that same energy. If you were one that went to their house and visited, or if y'all went out to eat dinner or have lunch, you keep the same relationship. I'm checking on you. Is there anything that I
Mm-hmm.
can do for you, and sometimes they may say no. I feel it's okay to name things. Do you need anything from the grocery store? Do you need, can I pick you up some paper goods? What is it? When was the last time you've eaten? And
Yeah.
encourage them, you need to eat something. Can I get you a smoothie? And this is based on relationships that you had prior to this. And I know sometimes people don't, and sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, I just want to be here for you. If I'm not in your way, and if this is not too much for you, I'm sitting. We don't have to talk about anything, or we can talk based on what it is that you want to have a conversation on. Or what do you want to watch on
Mm-hmm.
TV? Do you want to watch TV? Can I put some music on for you? Hey, will you sit here and you rest? I'm gonna just go in the kitchen and I'm gonna straighten up some things because I know people are probably gonna be stopping by. Allow them that space. Are you okay with
Yeah.
me to visit? Ask them, because if it's okay, they will either say, you know what, I really don't feel like I don't, I really just want to be to myself, and respect that. But if you had a relationship, give them that space, but ask them again tomorrow, or say, do you want me to come back in a couple of days? Because you want to be present. If you were present before, this is not the time because you're hurting as a friend or as a
Mm-hmm.
cousin
Yeah.
or as an auntie to back out. This is not the time to back out. And so don't give them space to say you didn't show up because you didn't know what to say or you didn't know what to do. Ask questions and let
Mm-hmm.
them speak because they still have a voice. They go either say
Yeah.
yes or they're going to say no.
Exactly. And I like the point that you made of being more specific. Because even me personally, when I'm trying to be there for someone that's grieving, I always say, let me know if you need anything. Their answer is always no. Because honestly, I don't even think they know they need anything right now. They're not thinking that I need to eat or that I need tissue. The things that we need on a daily basis, they're not able to think about that right
Hmm.
now. So that's definitely helped me to even say, you know what, let me be more specific when I text, hey, did you eat? So that's a good point that you made, because I don't, honestly, people don't know what to do. But the number one thing I agree with that you said is not to back out.
No.
I feel that, like you said, this person is used to you being there already prior to this. So to be a part of, you know, something that's leaving them in a hard time, or someone that's leaving them in that hard time, that's something that they'll remember.
Yeah.
That's going to
And
stick
I
with them.
think it's also important to note is to ask the questions, and even when you don't get the answer that you think, do it, because
Hmm.
they will see it or they will hear about it. They will remember things. So even if they're not saying anything, if you know, okay, well, they got a lot of people, then just pick up the paper goods, pick up the toiletries, pick up those
Hmm.
things, pick up the paper towels. You know, you're going to always need paper towel. You're going to always need toilet tissue. You can always use paper products. And so some things, you know, we asked a question because we're uncertain, but it's better when you're on the other side to just do it, because it there is
Yeah.
something that needs to be done.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. I needed that as someone that's had people around me who that's close to me that are grieving. So I know that there's other people that can use that piece of advice.
Yes.
Another question that came up in my time of just picking through what I felt would be useful questions for everyone is that how do you cope during the holidays? How do you cope during times of celebrating yourself, like birthdays or taking vacation? How were you able to cope in those hard times?
Yes. So what I will say, for the so this happened to my son around Christmas and into New Year's. So it was right after Christmas, but over the New Year. And so that first week, end of December, beginning of January. So for the first 3 years, I was sick. I was like sick. So if you remember, 2020 was during the time of COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
2021, so the end of 2020 into 2021, I got sick with COVID and went in the hospital. I ended up having to be hospitalized for 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
The following year, 2022, the same time, I got sick again. Literally, the end of December, beginning of January, I got sick again and was sick
Gee.
again with COVID. Didn't go in the hospital, but I was sick again. The third year, I got sick again around the same time.
Oh my
Not kidding you.
God.
And so I started to observe this pattern, that it was around the time every year that this happened. So I started to
Yes.
become more aware. I started to make sure that I was taking care of myself and that I allowed space for me to make sure that I wasn't overdoing things, that I was
Hmm.
increasing my vitamin C. Most importantly, I became more aware to the pattern of what was happening. And as far as the holidays are concerned, um, we try to do a trip. We try to do something around that time of the year, especially
Hmm.
Christmas, Thanksgiving. Our family is kind of small, so we would still cook. I cooked the things that my son liked. He liked cream cheese pies, and I always had to make two. He would eat off of the one that everybody ate off of and would take the other one. So I still try to do things that honor him and help us to remember him. For his
Yeah.
birthday, we may go out to eat, and we may go somewhere and eat cheesecake because that's something that he liked. I've done a brunch. He was into sneakers a lot. And so last year, for his birthday and me turning 50 within the same couple of weeks, I had a brunch, and where it was with my closest friends, and we dressed up because I like to dress up, but we wore sneakers, and then we
Hmm.
did a balloon release. So I'm a strong advocate of finding ways to honor the one that you love and not to forget about them, not to allow myself to become so embedded in sadness and grief that I
Yeah,
forget to honor them and to live a life that will honor them. And whatever that looks like, whether it's for their birthday, if they liked leopard print, then hey, listen, everybody, we going out to eat
that's what we're
and
wearing.
we're going to go and
Yeah.
wear some form of leopard because we want to honor them. We want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure, not to say that you're not going to cry, but honor them. They liked red. Everybody, listen, we having a dinner and everybody is wearing red, whatever that looks like, and honor them and find ways. We know what they like. And so I believe that's a way
Mm-hmm.
to keep their legacy, their life in a way that we honor them.
Yeah, I agree. I have a cousin that passed away 10 years ago. And till this day, we literally just celebrated him on August 3rd. We we took trips. We keep him alive to a point now. It was sadness, but now we laugh.
Yeah,
We put on his favorite song that he played like the day that he passed away. We laugh at how he would handle things or the jokes he would make, or when we wear certain things, he would say, "Now he would have said this about
uh-huh,
that." So finding ways to smile and keep him alive, I know that that's something that he's proud
yeah,
of. Just to, even after 10 years, to be able to constantly celebrate him, it's a way that it brings family together. And like he said, just don't be so embedded in sadness to where you can't even get to the point of
that's
celebrating the
right.
life of that
I
person.
know I
But also,
it was my 50th birthday and I was so excited about it because we had talked about this before, like what we were going to do when I turned 50. And I did this whole 50 days of Jubilee where I celebrated for up to 50 days. Each day I did something different. And the day of my birthday and party, I didn't want to get out of the bed. All of a sudden, it was like a spirit of depression had come over me. I cried for literally 2 hours. Was like, I can't believe that you're not here to
mm,
celebrate with me. This is not fair. And then all of a sudden, I could hear his voice saying, "You need to get up. This is your 50th birthday. Like, you better go and celebrate like you have never celebrated
yeah.
before." And it made me think about it. And I find myself saying, what would he want me to do? And so that's why I'm big on living a life that honors those that have gone before us. I mean, not to say I don't cry, and that was one of the
Hmm.
things that I asked God. God, when I do cry, don't let me sit in it too long. Like I can go from crying to laughing real easily, but that's something that I ask God to help me with.
Yeah. And like we say with healing, it's a journey. I don't believe in healed. I
Right.
don't, because
Hmm.
it's always something that we have to get through. And even if it's that exact same situation, we're finding out ways to cope better. We are learning how to navigate life. We are still healing.
Hmm.
We're still learning how to handle that hard situation that happened. And since we're talking about handling life after death, or after whatever it is that the person is grieving from, would you be able to provide, you gave a lot of
Hmm.
advice already, but what is that one or two things that you can say to a person that just experienced this hard loss, this difficult loss, and just can't get out of the denial and anger stage? They don't know how to move forward with life. They can't even see themselves moving forward because they feel like it's just not fair. What advice could you give to them?
So I think the first thing is you have to be true to what has taken place. And I think oftentimes when we keep saying, "I can't believe this happened. This is not real. I can't believe this happened." No, he's just
Mm-hmm.
still in Georgia, or he's still traveling. My sister said that for 2 years. Like, I'm just not gonna. I don't believe this has happened. He's still on the road. And I said, when you don't put yourself in a place to where you can accept, you're delaying your journey of healing. Like, you're not only delaying it, but you're denying it to a degree. And I said, but it's up to
Yeah.
you. You have to be in a place to where you accept it and you're ready to accept it. So one, I think it's important to position yourself to accept what is true, and then you can learn to deal with, okay, so how do I move on from here? Now that I realize that this has happened, where do I go and
Yeah.
how do I get there? What do I do? What are the steps that I take? And I believe at that point, it's a matter of being truthful with yourself and being open with what is going on in life for you. And like when someone asks you, how are you? Don't lie. Tell the truth. Today was hard. I did not want to get out of
Yeah.
bed. You know what? Today I'm angry. I'm just angry because this happened. And so it's just important to be truthful with yourself, in all aspects of what that looks like, no matter how hard it is, because the longer you keep yourself in this place that this has not happened, then you cannot begin the
Hmm.
journey of healing. You
Yeah.
can't begin the journey of healing, no matter you just have to be truthful with yourself.
Yep. You have to gain that
Hmm.
acceptance that this is what happened and it's time to move forward. Do you? So I noticed that there's a lot, like I try when people go through things. I'm a social worker, so I always feel that I can give them a resource, a support group, or, you know, books. I know that you have almost everything that I just mentioned just now. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do and how people can gain access to you on this journey of healing of grief for them?
Yes, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, we offer grief support. Right now, it's in person, and it's here in the Hammond, Louisiana area. And so we are
Hmm.
about 40 minutes from Baton Rouge, 40 minutes from New Orleans, hour from Mississippi. So, which is not, when it comes to uh, your journey of healing and what's best for you, I don't like to put money on it or restraints and distance. Like
Yeah.
if you need it, then I say you need to go the distance to get what you need to be a better version of who you are. So we do offer grief
Yes.
support monthly. And it's a very small and an intimate group of people. And
I
it's
like that.
from people who have lost children to spouses to grandchildren, to whatever the case may be. And we also like to say for us, dealing with grief is the loss of a person, place, or thing. So we don't limit it to just a person. It could be someone who is going through a divorce, someone who had to relocate, whatever, they may have lost a job, whatever the case may be, because our brain does not associate grief with it's a person.
Yep.
It's pain, or it's a lack of something, or it's a loss of something. So definitely we do not limit people for that. We have an annual grief conference that is free. It's called Grieving with Grace. That will be coming up November the 9th. And we typically do it in the month of November. This will be the fourth year that we've done that. We do have people from anywhere from personal testimonies to grief coach, to ministers, to social
Wow.
workers, to therapists, to empowerment speakers. We've had a comedian to host one
Amazing.
year. So it's never the same. Each year it looks different. The very first year we did offer something for children. The next year we did not. Last year we did bring children back into it, and it was a panel discussion. We will be focusing on children and adults again this year. We have a really great keynote speaker. His name is Dr. Joshua Smith. He is a coach. He is also a man of faith. He's a therapist. So he will be our main keynote speaker for that this year. In addition, we will have a panel that speaks or deal with specifically with children. That will be a panel
Wow.
discussion this year. So those are the resources that we have. I've served on been a part of different grief panels. I've actually gone to different churches, organizations, and actually spoke about grief, what it looks like to process it, the journey of it. So those are some of the things that we do offer. Everything that we offer is always free, because I feel like when you've lost someone who is close to you, the cost of that is high enough. And so we want to
Ooh.
create a space for people to just come in and gain
Yeah.
insight and resources. And I understand that not everyone wants to do it, which is why I say it's a choice. Grieving is a choice, it's a decision, an individual decision that I make to say, you know what, I'm going to go through the process of grieving, or I'm going to stay in the place of mourning. I'm going to stay in the place to where I prepare for the
Mhm.
funeral. We had the funeral and I'm not going any further. But dealing the grief process is I've had the funeral, we've buried them, and now I'm making steps to make sure that I go through this process and this journey. I may not go through at the same pace as someone else, but I'm going to go through and I'm
Yeah.
going to walk through it.
Wow. That's great. That everything that you are doing is great, and it definitely shows me how God definitely chose you, because you are, first off, for it to be free. And I like that you stated they have already paid a lot.
Mhm.
They are still paying
Right.
for this loss. And I'm hoping that people listen to this and really, I know I'm in Houston, so the people that I know here, but like you said, distance shouldn't be, and it's a free
Right.
event. If you just have to drive and get there, I would definitely recommend that you all take this time to go, because a lot of things are virtual
Mhm.
now. But I like that yours is in person, because, like you said, you need the intimacy. It's a different vibe and feeling when you're around other people and you get to speak to them and experience that time of being in that environment, or even able to pull you to the side and talk to
Mhm.
you. It's a whole different thing from being in a virtual setting. But do you think eventually you would open it up to being virtual?
We will eventually get there. We're at this point, I know it's just having the right technological resources to be able to
Yeah.
stream things. And so we will actually get to that point. And one thing that I do want to clarify is the grief gathering is the smaller intimate groups, and it's
Oh, okay.
once a month. The Grieving with Grace conference, we are up to a little over 100 people that are in attendance now. And what I will say is, and because I think sometimes people think that we are making people talk, even at the grief support meetings, you don't
Mhm.
have to talk. You're there to receive information. The same serves true for the Grieving with Grace conference. You don't have to talk. You can ask questions if you want to, but you're there to receive information. It is not a time to make people more sad, because I understand it's hard enough to get there.
Yes.
It's not like I mentioned earlier. We've had a comedian, a renowned comedian, to come and host the event, and it's to lighten the mood. We do different things to lighten the
Yeah.
mood for things. So before you leave, you're connected with someone else who experienced a common situation as yourself. So it's very unique. As I mentioned, it's never the same. Each year is very different. Um, I understand, and there are people who help lead this event who understand the importance of making people feel like they're a part of a community. And it's a community of grief,
Mhm.
but it's not to bring you as if you have no hope. It's not to make you sad. It's to let you know that you're not alone. And so we provide the
Exactly.
resources.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of a support group, is to let you know that it's people just like you experiencing the same thing, that God didn't just pick you to experience this. And you never know who you'll meet in
Absolutely.
there. That may be your accountability partner through this, that God may have placed in your life. So I truly believe you have to get out of your comfort zone, step into a different environment, network. And networking is not just for business, that's just, it can be for your own
Right.
personal life. You never know who you'll run into in these environments that can help you heal and get to the next level, or you can pour something
Hmm.
into. So I'm all for going out of my way to attend a conference or a webinar or whatever it is that's going to help me.
Hmm.
And that's the whole point of everything, is you have to want it. It's there. You have to be open to receive it. And I'm so thankful for people like you who take your life experiences and use it, your testimony, to help build other people up. And I thank you for taking what God put you through and turning into the purpose that He gave you. Because
Yeah.
if you didn't do it, those 100 people that booked that wouldn't have a place to go where they feel empowered when
Right.
they leave, where they feel like she been through this and look at her up on this
Hmm.
stage.
Hmm.
I can get there.
Hmm.
I can still accomplish these
Yeah.
things God has for me. So I again thank you so much for just carrying out what God called you to.
Absolutely. Thank you for, I appreciate you for creating a platform to provide resources and additional information and to those who are grieving. And what I always like to say to people is you can't heal from what you're not willing to talk about. And so, and also, when I'm in different settings, I'll tell them God can't heal what you're not willing to talk about. And so you can only go as far as you're willing to go. And so, you're not alone. I would tell my daughter oftentimes that you're not the first one who have experienced this and you won't be the last. And it's not in a way to feel or to be mean or just uncaring, but it's a real moment that I'm not the first person who lost a son, and I won't be the last one. But what I have vowed and committed myself to do is to provide the resources for people who are willing to receive it.
Yeah. Yes. And accepting that some are not there
Hmm.
yet. And that's what any professional, anyone that's leading a support group has to understand, that not everyone is going to get what they need today.
And
Um,
here's
but
the
I
last
do,
thing that I will say about this
yeah.
is and I understand that everyone's journey of grief is different and some are longer.
Hmm.
But what I will say is staying too long is unhealthy, because it's staying in a place of
Yeah.
grief for too long is unhealthy. So, which means that I became accountable to my friends and even to my daughter to say, listen, if I'm in the bed for 3 days, longer than 3 days, I'm giving you permission to tell me you've been in the bed for 3 days. You
Yeah.
need to get up and come to the living room. So I was accountable to them. And so, staying in a place of grief for too long leads to other things, not only depression, but it could
Hmm.
lead to other, physical
Illnesses.
illnesses.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say it's okay to grieve and to take your time, but staying too long, and it's up to the
Hmm.
individual and people that's around them to help them to identify what's too long and let them walk out that process.
Yep. Because, like you said, it leads to a lot of
Hmm.
illnesses. It lowers your immune
Hmm.
system. Called blood clots, staying in one place too
Hmm.
long. People don't understand that heartbreak can cause
Hmm.
physical and mental
Hmm.
illnesses, that once you get to that point, it's hard
Yeah,
to get away from that diagnosis.
absolutely.
So I thank you for bringing that up. That's very important to talk about when experiencing grief.
Yes.
So you have talked about a lot of things, and I'm sure everybody is trying to figure out, how can I find her? I need her on my timeline. I need to keep her near, so when I'm ready to book that trip to Hammond, I know where I can find her to get that scheduled. What are your Instagram or Facebook um, links or names, so that people are able to find you?
Yes. So on Facebook, my personal Facebook is Pamela Evans White. The organization's Facebook is Empowering Kingdom Growth. So that's on Facebook. I do on TikTok. There are lots of, and you're asking me that, so I'm going to have to look because I don't remember all of that.
Yeah.
TikTok, I basically use it only for the grief things that I may do, and that is actually
Mm-hmm.
rescued by grace underscore 2020. So that's TikTok. And the same thing on Instagram is rescued by
Oh,
grace underscore 2020. So we also have a website where you can look up upcoming things, and so amazing. So our new website is was rebranded, and today is the relaunching day. Um, so
well, look at
yes, yes, yes. So the website is weareekg.com, and it's weareekg.com. So on there you could see the upcoming events. You can also, we're working on building a resource page where you will be able to connect with different therapists or see different video clips of
that.
places, different topics that I've talked about as it relates to grief. Be
Yeah.
able to see places that I may be speaking, upcoming events that I may be speaking at, or upcoming events that we're actually hosting.
Okay. And does your organization take donations? I know you said that you all, so it's free for everything. are you all accepting donations to help to keep this thing going? I know it's not
Uh,
cheap and it's not
right.
easy to maintain.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that because I often forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, especially for this, the Grieving with Grace conference, we are actually looking for sponsors. We have different levels of sponsorship. You can go to the website and connect with us that way, and we will send an email back. But
Yeah.
also, there is a donate button on the website to where you can actually donate. And just on last night, someone that I connected with through another organization, she saw this live interview that I did with the local news station, and she went to the website and did a donation and just told, thanked me for the ministry that I'm offering to people because it's definitely needed. So yes, there's no donation that is too small. There is whatever you give, it goes towards the ministry, the organization, to be able to offer these free resources to those that need it.
All right. Well, there y'all have it. As many ways that you can be a part of this amazing thing that she's doing. I myself am very impressed with everything that you do. I'm your friend on Facebook, so I see that you're always involved with the grief community, and it has become a big part. It is a big part of your life.
Yes.
So y'all need to get active and be a part of it if you're on your grieving journey, whether you are just starting out today or you've been on this journey for 10 years. You never know what you can get or give to this
Mm-hmm.
community. And Miss Pamela, I want to thank you so much for taking my invite to be on my show. I'm sure I'll see you again in the future in somewhere, some shape or
Yes.
fashion. And again, thank you so much for taking this offer to be here and just helping other people on their journey as
Yes.
well.
Thank you again for having me.
No problem. Thank you. And then again, thank y'all for listening to Hill Yet Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you have any questions, please reach out to her or me. I will put all her information in the description. Make sure that you all get involved in some way if you are on your journey of grief. We know this is not easy. Grieving is a lifelong journey for some, but you have to decide what you want that journey to look like. You are in control of that. And like she said, you have to accept what it is and move forward. And there are many tools out there for you. And this one right here is just one alone. So you have to make the decision, make the choice. Thank you all.